suddenly, bingo, the past faded in a flash. What did it? Well, just that as I looked from left to right, centuries went by, and I found myself looking down on a modern seaside resort. So, I hope you'll forgive me, sir, for abandoning the old for the new in such an almighty hurry. I made a beeline for the new Hastings.
There's been baths here since the 19th century. The baths that you see now were created mainly by Sidney Little, the infamous concrete king who created the whole of the front line back in the 1920s, 30s.
I mean, I've known the White Rock Baths for over 50 years. I learnt to swim in the small pool on the White Rock Baths.
The development consisted of a small swimming bath which was exclusively used for teaching young children to swim.
As a youngster, I would have used the large baths for recreation, so I've known that site a long time.
A large swimming bath, a traditional 55 yards long swimming bath, which was the Olympic standard pre-decimalisation. Different designs, one was a mosaic design, the small one, and the other one was a tile design. Down here there was also a cafeteria, which is immediately behind me, which was much in the tradition of the 1930s, with oodles of Lloyd loom furniture, panelled walls, and waitresses running about serving everybody teas while they waited for their turn at the baths. There was the private baths, which were medicinal, herbal, mud, all sorts of different baths that were down here. It catered for all tastes and at all times. And as it went on, it developed and developed, and then sometime it sort of became dated, for lack of a better word. And this one closed and it was taken over as an ice rink, which was very successful.
I mean, I can remember swimming here, I guess it was the 1980s, looking up at the fiberglass roof above me. But I guess my best memory was ice skating here with a friend of mine called Nigel. And he fell over in front of me, and I ran over his fingers with an ice skate and cut his finger off.
Then that in turn closed, and that really was the end of the baths as a useful place.
Yeah, the building hasn't had a use for 17 years and has been empty. We've been looking for a use for it really for that whole of that 17 years.
Urban legend. It was like sort of folklore, and almost to the point where it was, you know, was it true or not?
There used to be like these glass tiles that you could look down through. Sometimes they were a bit smashed up, so you could just peer down and see where the rotten holes were underneath.
I mean, we'd heard rumours that there was a skate park in there, but we didn't know, you know, and we're like, well, how the hell could there be a skate park under there, right where we're living? And
you know, it was quite fabled that it was still down there.
And we'd always like be like, oh, no, I can definitely see some bowls down there.
We're supposed to be the forefront of BMX and skating, and
He just wanted Colin's old wives' tales, you know, but apparently it turns out it's there, you know.
No, and there's a skate park underneath us, and we're here every night. And it's like, nah, but there really was.
First time I went to the concrete cave I was probably about 15 or 16. It's got to be around 77, 78. Walking into this crazy space underground with a giant bowl, a huge reservoir that we'd never seen anything like that before, and just the most enormous half pipe at the end of the hall, reaching right up to the ceiling. It was an amazing space, an amazing time.
I first started coming down here in 1977 when the park was first built. Happy times here. The park lasted for about 2 years and then was unexpectedly mothballed, which coincided with skateboarding officially being called dead in the UK, which it was, unfortunately.
The park was developed by Dave Beeden. He was a local sports store owner, did a lot of skate gear. He developed the site with his brother. I remember, you know, seeing in the early days of them working real hard with Kangol guns and stuff, trying to smash up the old reinforced concrete there. It was one hell of a job.
So the park opens 1977. That's an immediate hit.
For a time, it was the place we went all the time.
It's usually got sort of 60, 70 kids in here.
The RAS team came to the skate park. We had Mark Baker and Shogo Kubo, who was from the Dogtown Skates team, iconic.
That was a big demo. It left a lot of impressions on people.
Yeah, I think he had about 4 or 5 decks with him, and he actually handed me one of the decks and said, there you go, man, you can use that 30 or 40 years later. Still got that same deck, the Dogtown Skates deck.
Because it's got huge heritage as being a skate park. Hastings has always had a big skate scene.
And then, you know, I guess with the demise of the popularity of skateboarding, it just kind of went away. Yeah, they put a lot of work into that.
Is it bright in there?
Yeah, pretty bright. Come on, comparison to what it normally is. You can't come this way, you'll die. It's down here.
Big hole there.
And it goes all the way down the side of the swimming pool, down here. With tunnels to get in the actual side of the swimming pool.
Beam.
Pipes.
Not everyone was that enthusiastic about it from the start. I'd like to say I was. I think I was, actually.
My initial reaction was I was very interested. Rich and Marc had clearly thought about what they wanted to do.
I mean, I've probably shown over 100 different organisations and people around the building over that 17 years. And I would say that the Source's idea was the first idea that had possibilities.
Marc and I founded The Source in 2003 as a small independent BMX and skateboard retailer.
No real sort of massive plans, just to start a small BMX shop, which we did, and it's just grown and grown.
But back in 2013, we started talking about the need for a decent indoor skate park in the southeast of England.
We've been looking for something to happen within that building for a long time. It's been empty too long from the days of the ice rink, and we want to rejuvenate the seafront.
I arranged a viewing with Hastings Council and were just blown away by the size and scale and grandness of the building.
Here we've got Hastings Pier, opening next year, just a few yards along from the White Rock Baths.
Hastings has wrongly had a poor image over the last 15, 20 years. It's seen as somewhere that's seen better days. I know Hastings has got a fantastic future, that it's not just being talked about, but real money being spent in Hastings, attracting people locally, regionally, nationally and internationally. That's got to be great for Hastings.
It's just such a big motivation, build something cool and sort of iconic.
So when we heard about the Source project and we saw the quality of what they have on offer, it absolutely fitted with our plans to revitalise that part of the seafront.
It was a shock at how open they were to what was quite a radical idea.
I think they was just genuinely excited that a local business that's just around the corner could do something really good in there.
As soon as people started to know the details and also met the people involved in the Source, which is probably the biggest selling point on it. But it wasn't long before we kind of realised that this was a serious proposition and that for the first time, really, the numbers did add up.
We're investing kind of every penny we have in building one of the best skate parks ever in shop. If people don't come, it might be enough to take us down.
I've got very high expectations. I want to see a top quality, world-class skateboard and BMX park there. My job is to put Hastings on the map internationally. I'm hoping and expecting that this will do just that.
The fucking jacuzzi, look at the tiling! Hey? Look at the size of this jacuzzi here, James. This full up the water can go right where? Worries for the project, just, I don't know, it's a lot of money, a lot of work, it could go very wrong. It could just, we're putting a lot on the line to sort of make this work, and although we've planned every detail, it's just one of those projects which is such an unknown.
So what's your name, your job role and your home base?
Okay, my name's Richard Moore. I'm Managing Director of The Source and I was born and live in Hastings.
I'm Marc Moore, I'm Marketing Director of The Source, and I live in Hastings.
You ready then? Just banging straight away? Okey-doke. I think my dad bought me my first bike when I was 4, and then me and my brother and friends started going to the BMX track. There really wasn't anywhere else to go.
So I remember getting my first bike for Christmas, a rally bumper, and I learned to ride in the park like most kids, just being pushed around. My friend Pete mentioned the BMX track, and we went up there to ride.
The first time I learnt to ride a bike was next to the BMX track on the football pitch.
First of all, it was just riding over the routes or getting up the tabletop in the middle, because that was like the challenge. And then as time went on, it was just that you wanted to jump this jump or you wanted to beat your friend in a race.
There was nothing really else to do other than to ride BMX. Starting at that age made us see the world around us differently.
So I raced for like half a season before, and then he raced the next year. I mean, he would have been 3 when I first started, so yeah, he was pretty young.
He wanted to race. Jon said to him, right, he said, if you can ride the length of the football pitch and back, you can race. So we bent the things up and gave him a push, and he rode all up the football pitch and back again. Right, racing next week.
I think I got to the 18-yard box and took one to the face. Pretty sure it was straight down the start hill after then, same day. All was good.
Yeah, I mean, I think we loved racing, like loved kind of beating people and competing, and we wanted to join and go to another track. You could hear all these stories.
So me and Richard became fully fledged members of the Bexhill Burners BMX club. We were down the track every day, but this allowed us to compete in the races. I think I was in the under 6s and Rick must have been in the under 8s.
I remember them being rad little races. I remember Jon and June, because they got involved with the setup down here very quickly and started to help out and stuff.
I used to take him down on a Sunday.
I think to start with, my mum took us there, and then my dad, because he used to play golf on a Sunday and stuff.
Yeah, I was a single handicap golfer, played off 7.
So he didn't come to BMX races?
And they kept saying, well, come down and see me. Race.
BMX racing in the 90s was still pretty small, especially in the UK, but there was things on every weekend.
And I said, well, I'm not going to do that.
But then after a couple, he'd come up, and then he just got hooked and he quit golf pretty quickly after that.
I remember travelling what seems like every single weekend to a track.
All these families from all around the country would descend on this BMX race in caravans and tents, and that would be half the adventure, you know? You'd camp all weekend, you'd meet all new friends from all over the place. I think one of the biggest things was just getting to travel. Basically everywhere we travelled was because of BMX. It's like pretty much any town or city in the country we've been to.
It was the best fun, just hanging out with everyone that was on the same circuit, just doing the same races.
Different courses or different jumps, and the challenge of trying to jump something.
So my dad drove me to every race ever that we went around the UK in those years.
Burgess Hill, what's this? Bloody Brighton. I ain't going to Brighton to ride bikes.
He took us everywhere in the back of his Granada.
Hounslow? Is it London? I ain't going to bloody London to ride bikes.
So we'd be Milton Keynes one weekend for a race, and then we'd be up in Derby, somewhere in the West Country.
Why don't you come to a national? We got one in Slough.
You don't think of it much when you're a kid, as if it's a big deal. You're just like, okay, yeah, there's another race. Gonna take me somewhere.
To a national at Birmingham.
As you get older, you realise what sort of sacrifices he must have done.
504 miles on a Sunday, just to race a bloody bike. And he fell off in his first race. We come home.
And the amount of money it must have cost to fill that massive car up.
I don't know what it cost, but it didn't matter because that's what we did.
Yeah, he definitely made a lot of sacrifices for that.
BMX was the most exciting sport I've ever been involved in. To be honest, I am not over interested in the jumping side. And what I liked about racing is that it was an individual thing. You didn't rely on other people, you relied on yourself. Just how much you wanted to put in was what you got out.
The art of racing is to cross the line first, so there is always an element of being serious about it.
Somebody said to me one day that Marc's a good rider. Because I've been watching him, he's very, very good.
For me, it was always just fun. And then when Rick was probably 14, I was 12, it started getting slightly more serious that I really wanted to win.
They just loved it.
Just loved it.
They loved
Richard's
it.
was a driving force, always has been on that side, very competitive. not quite as good a rider as Marc, but is well.
I was great, he was shit.
Yeah, I mean, I raced from like age 6 to 15. And when I was 15, we were at this Milton Keynes race, and I broke my leg.
Turned out one of us was really good at BMX and the other one not so much.
And just went down and like snapped my femur. In the 4 months that I couldn't ride, just started borrowing cameras and taking photos in the middle of the track. You didn't need a press pass then, so I was just taking pictures.
In the late 90s, early 2000s, I continued to race and got more and more into it, more competitive. And that went on and grew until, you know, we were going racing all around the world. We were winning things, we were doing pretty well, which was really good fun.
We raced in all over Europe. We went to Austria. We raced in Australia.
So when I was 14, we went over to Australia to see family, which I think was planned because it also coincided with the World Championship race in Melbourne. So I went to Australia, which is so far away from anyone that's any good at riding BMX that I came out the other end of it with a 3rd world ranking.
Marc was a good rider. I think he was number 2 in the country, but there was no expectation that he was in with a shot of getting a title or anything.
Sounds really good, but it's actually still quite lame.
Right away we go, 14 class final as they bounce out on the outside. Clifton gets a great start. Up on the outside also on bike number 5 is the Frenchman of Goodwin as they die. Well, we got that's 4-5 down in that first turn. One Percy's down off the bike also. Away on the racing, the Frenchman out in front. Back there in second position is bike number 62 is Santa Loara from Argentina. The great Britain rider Marc Moore picking up that 3rd placing. Also in there, Greg Cliff hanging into the 4th. They go through the flat sweeper now. Back through the rhythm section once more, around the final turn, and put your hands together. The Frenchman's going to take it all the way to the finishing line.
Which was quite funny at the time.
Going through also will be the Great Britain back there from Marc Moore.
But yeah, pretty good holiday.
In 3rd place from Great Britain, Marc Moore. In 2nd place from Argentina, Ignacio Santillana. And in 1st place, and World Challenge Champion from France, Goodwin. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the national anthem of France.